Today I'll be talking about fibroids. First off, what they are, how I was diagnosed with having fibroids, and what I did after finding out that I had fibroids. So I'm assuming that you are watching this video because you're in the same boat. Perhaps you just found out that you also have fibroids, or you have fibroids, or you're assuming that you possibly do have fibroids. So first off, I'm going to go, I pulled up what fibroids are. Okay. That fibroids are non-cancerous growths in the uterus that can develop during a woman's childbirthing years. The cause of fibroids isn't well understood. The risk factors include family history, obesity, or early onset puberty. Okay. Also, it says some of the symptoms include heavy menstrual bleeding, prolonged periods, pelvic pain, and in some cases, no symptoms at all. I was definitely not a no symptoms type of person. Like heavy bleeding, when I first got my period, when I first started my period, like out the gate, I had super heavy periods. And when I say super heavy periods, I'm talking honestly, like for real, for real. I would wear Depends, and then I would buy Always Overnight with wings, and I would put two on. So I have on a Depend and two overnight pads. And if I would go to bed like at night, I would definitely do that at night. Like during the day, I might just wear just the two pads, but at night I would wear the Depend plus the two pads, and I would still wake up in the middle of the night or in the morning in a pool of blood. Like that's how heavy my cycles were. And I just knew like something just it just seems like, man, this is so messed up. I hate it when my period came. Everyone else around me, it seemed like they had okay periods. Like my sister, hers would just last for like 2 or 3 days, and she would have light cycles. Like she would literally be wearing panty liners, and I'm like, what is this? Like I couldn't understand why mine was so different than hers. Mine would last 7 or 8 days, and maybe like the seventh or eighth days, that's when it will like get light and like trickle off. But it would be seriously heavy flow for 5, 6, 7 days straight. Like it was horrible. A lot of times when I was on my cycle, I wouldn't want to do anything. I'm not going. I would sometimes I would not go to school. I would just feel sick all the time. Not riding bike. I'm not walking. I didn't want to do anything, and I honestly did not want to lay down, because if I lay down, then I knew that it was going to cause a huge mess every time. As far as the pain, yes, I had severe pain. Um, it wasn't to the point where I would like actually vomit, but I would become very nauseous, um, but never actually vomiting. So those were definitely my symptoms. And it also mentioned pelvic pain. I had a lot of cramping, and I just again associated all of that with that. I just had bad periods. I never ever thought anything of it. Now, one thing that this did not mention is infertility, having fertility issues. So I got married at 24. By 30, I had not become pregnant, not once. So I was thinking like something was up. Something was up, and honest to goodness, I didn't think it was me. I thought it was my husband. So we went to a fertility specialist, and when we got to the specialist, I honestly just like I wanted him to get checked out, and he was like, "No, you get checked out. Like you do it first, and then if it's not you, then I'll go in, and whatever test they have to run on me, I'll do it." Okay, so fine. We talked to the fertility specialist, and they kind of went over a lot of different options with us. IVF. They went over a whole list of different things that we can do, and she even talked about adoption, even though that's like outside of her realm. She even talked about adoption. Maybe it's just not possible for you to get pregnant, but we're going to run some tests and we're going to see, what's going on. We're going to try to, figure this out. So they did blood work. After the consultation, we did the blood work, and then I came back, and that's when they told me, oh, you're like severely anemic. And I kind of knew that because going to the doctor for my yearly checkups and maybe getting some blood drawn every now and then, I knew that I was anemic. What I didn't know, and what this doesn't say, is that it will cause you to become anemic. You will have a low blood count because you're losing so much freaking blood with these cycles. Like, and it just, your body's trying to catch up and I guess rejuvenate itself. And man, that also, when you're anemic, it causes you to become sluggish, tired all the time. I had no clue. I was not connecting any of these dots. I had no clue what was going on. Okay, so back at the doctor's office, okay, at the fertility specialist. The next time I go in, after I do the blood work, when I go back in, she tells me I'm anemic, but this time we're going to actually go in and they're going to do an ultrasound. They're going to do a vaginal ultrasound. And it's pretty much the same like in your early pregnancy, what they'll do when you first find out you're pregnant. They'll, take a little wand and okay. So, yeah, let me tell you. So if you haven't had this done, it's fun. It's super freaking fun. Not really. So they have like these, I don't know if it's like clamps or forceps or whatever, but what they do is Lord, it pries you open. It pries you open, and then they take this other probe thing, which is the ultrasound, vaginal ultrasound thing, and then they stick it. Okay. We as women have to go through so freaking much. And it's like you can't even have no pride, you can't have no embarrassment. You just gotta let everybody up and get your stuff. And whew, okay. So in the office, and she's talking about some relax. I don't know how I'm supposed to be relaxed at this moment. But anyway, so she's telling me relax. She's probing. After that, her and the nurse, because the nurse was in the room with her, with us, and then her and the nurse, they're just talking, they're chatting away. So I'm sitting here on this little, examination bed, and they're right to the side of me, like in arm's reach, and they're over there talking. You see that one? You see this? Yeah. Oh, wow. Look at this. Look at this. And they're pointing to stuff on the screen. They're not saying anything to me. So at this point, I'm um, like I'm right here, like y'all talking about me, like. So I'm like, okay. I was like, is there something like going on? Like, what's wrong? What's the problem? And then the doctor is like, well, you have fibroids, and you have a lot of them, and like they're like all in your uterus. They're like all over. Like, did you say you had a kid? And I'm like, yeah, I have a kid. You should. I don't see how you could have a kid. Uh, it looks like you've had these for a long time. I don't think you. How old is your kid? And at that time, I had just had my first son, and he was like 2. And she's like, "Oh, you have a 2-year-old? Okay. This is weird that you have a kid, but you're probably not going to be able to have any more kids because you have too much going on in there." And so I am like blown away. I am in shock. That my first pregnancy, the doctor never told me that I had a fibroid, that I had a fibroid actually in the womb with the embryo, with my child. And luckily, nothing happened with my child, my first child, and I got pregnant at 30. So I had him. After I had him, about a year and a half later, I wanted to have another, and that's when we went to the fertility specialist. After going to the fertility specialist, first off, I was hurt, you know. Because not, I mean, yeah, it was me, but I was also hurt with the way that her approach was just boo boo, like just garbage. Like, that's not how you're supposed to tell somebody something. You don't sit there and be pointing at stuff that you just took a picture of the inside of their body. You don't do that. You know what I mean? So, um, it was just so many different emotions that I was going through at that time. So when I left the doctor's office, she did tell me a few different options. She said, number one, you can do nothing. You can do nothing at all. Just leave them there. Um, and they're going to probably just grow and continue to grow. Number two, you can get a hysterectomy and you're not going to, definitely won't be able to have any more kids. Number three, you can have a myomectomy and you can try to have kids. There's no guarantee. Most likely, you'll have some scarring from the tissues from them cutting away the fibroids, and the fibroids are just going to grow back anyway. But yeah, those are the options. Okay, so I leave out of there like frustrated and crying like no other. Because I'm like, dude, it is my body. Like, I'm just jacked up or whatever. And so I actually reach out to the doctor that I had when I had my son, like a year and a half before, and I asked for copies of all the ultrasounds. Like, I wanted to see what was going on. Sure enough, that's when I saw that I had fibroids in and around my uterus. That doctor, he never said anything to me when I was pregnant that whole time. And actually, I went to 10 months with my first child. I went through 10 months of pregnancy with him. Never once said, hey, you have fibroids in there. Hey, there, you might, just to let you know. He never said anything. And I didn't feel like there was anything unusual about the pregnancy, like no bleeding, no cramping, nothing. And so to find out after looking back at the freaking ultrasounds from my pregnancy, I'm like, I had fibroids. This doctor never said anything. And I don't know if he didn't say anything because he was an older doctor. He was like 76 at the time. So he was like, he probably had seen it a million times and he didn't think it was a big deal. Or maybe he didn't want to worry with me with it, but I feel like as a doctor, he should have told me that. Like, he should have said, like, you got fibroids in there with the baby, and just so that you know. I don't know. I just feel like that's what he should have done, but he didn't. So anyways, moving forward, before I left that fertility center, she did tell me that she would give me the contact information for a specialist who um, did the procedure of hysterectomies as well as myomectomy. So I said, okay. I took the information. But during that time that I took the information, I was just like going crazy on the internet, like just searching everywhere, talking to everyone. I found all these groups on Facebook, um, support groups, people chatting about it, just trying to find out more about fibroids and how this could be. How could this be? It felt like I know it wasn't a death sentence, but in a way, I just felt like cursed. Like, I really wanted another child. I didn't want to have just one child. I didn't want him to be the only child. And I knew that I should be grateful that I had one child, but it was something feeling like kind of defeated in me. Like, shoot, it took me all of these years to have one kid, and now this doctor is telling me like you can't have any more, and I don't even know how you had the first one. Like, I felt defeated. So in video 2, I'm going to tell you guys what happened.